Our next speaker is a personal mentor of mine. She is an AREI trustee and the co-founder and CEO of ResCo. Please welcome Katie Hoffman, and she is speaking Millennials on the Move, Financing a Low-Carbon Economy.
Thank you, Abby. For those of you who don't know Abby, she is a wizard, and she's amazing. So the way I wanted to start this out, first and foremost, I had a very technical conversation that I was going to bring to the podium today. And then we had, after last night, everything kind of changed for me. So I'm going to go a little higher level today and try to create some context, because we're processing a lot of information here, and I think what we do with it next is what really matters. So first, we're going to do a little exercise. I learned this from my friend Jonah Whitcamper, who started a group called Nexus Global. Everyone, take a moment and close your eyes. It's nice when your feet are planted on the ground too, but so when your eyes are closed, imagine for a moment if everyone in this room has your back for the rest of your life. And breathe. Imagine what that would look like globally. Open your eyes. Okay, so that was an exercise to help get us grounded. And I'm here today representing many things. A generation, apparently, millennials. We're killing everything. A company, AREDAY. I want to thank Sally and Chip for organizing this incredible group of people. And I have a lot of things to say with specificity about the financial system and the need to shift trillions towards bankable climate solutions, or the fact that while I've been in my 20s, we've seen atmospheric carbon pollution raised to levels that will not support life on this earth. But I actually don't want to go there, because we've talked a lot about that. Today I want to talk about community. So I was thinking about, like, what am I going to take off this mountain? And what is the most powerful thing that we could all do together? And the first word that came to my mind was community. So I actually looked it up, because I didn't know the definition. I know what it is to me. So the definition that I found was, that I liked, a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. So I hope you all can hold that, because what we're really doing here is trying to build community. We're not just talking, we're about doing. Over the course of the summit and throughout the years in many of our lives, we've been striving to uplift the climate conversation, right? And this year, we're talking about systems and regeneration, which is telling of the times and what we really need to be talking about, transforming systems and paradigms. And we're at a moment. Welcome to the summer solstice, right? So we heard from some brilliant minds about soil solutions, transportation, drawdown, distributed energy in rural communities, uplifting women and girls, how blockchain technologies have the potential to distribute resources in a more just and equitable way if we take the time to actually learn, understand, and embrace those technologies, which Hanye was so generous in her time to organize Tuesday night and really help us understand how those technologies can interact with the world that we've been living in. And then last night we heard from Reverend Durley and my friend Hawk Newsom about how those of us working tirelessly to protect and serve the environment can join forces with them to protect and serve the lives of Black and brown people disproportionately burdened by pollution and brutality. So all of us have been exposed to a lot of information. And I know, as I said, we're going to leave this mountain inspired and more connected. But the real test is what we do together moving forward and how we build intergenerational community. So as a person born into this generation, which is very large in numbers, here's my only statistical quib of the speech. We actually have purchasing power of upward of 1 trillion annually, and that's only growing. And we're an on-demand generation, as they say. We're changing the way markets operate. And we stand to inherit, as a generation, somewhere in the ballpark of 30 to 50 trillion within the next several decades. That's a lot of capital. And all of us in the generation, statistically, not all of us, I should say, there is a large leaning towards demand for sustainability. Our generation is conscious, we're well educated, and we want to see change, and we don't want our money to be harming the very planet and the air that we breathe. So I want to debunk a couple of the myths about millennials because I think it's disrupting our ability to create genuine community with each other. We're killing everything, da 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 da. So if I had $1 or a Bitcoin for every time someone asked me, what do you do? I get asked, what do I do all the time? It's like, I'm a human. So how about what are you passionate about? Like how in breaking down some of these barriers that disconnect us, that we're lazy, that we're entitled. I think every single person in this room is entitled to clean air, water, energy, and food, right? So maybe we are entitled. And I want to answer the question of what do you do with a quick story, because I think it relates to community. So when my first company that I started, still my company, I was working to address a gap in the market. We've talked a lot about that today. Our financial system has externalized climate for over a century under the auspices of creating efficient markets, right? And I was told when we were launching the campaign to work with the University of California, CalPERS and CalSTRS, to shift their billions of dollars, I think collectively that's about $700 billion, to shift that towards more environmental consciousness, or what we call ESG, environmental, social, and governance standards. I was told by wealth managers, by chief investment officers that, they cared about the issue of climate change morally, but the financials weren't there. That's just not true, but I got that consistently. And I thought to myself, how can we have an economy if we're investing in the very companies destroying the planet that it exists upon? And no one could really answer that question within those boardrooms. And luckily, we started a process by which to integrate these types of conversations into those rooms, but we haven't reached parity yet, and we really need to keep pushing. And it's people my age that were willing to take the leap in a market and a space that we didn't fully understand, financial markets in particular. It wasn't my path in life, to try and have that conversation because it was so critically important. We don't want to invest in companies or funds that generate returns in the short run in exchange for our futures. This is reflected in our consumer demands, as I mentioned, and it's also reflected in how we approach work and life. So the story that I'm telling about starting my company, talking to the CIO, all of this stuff, and recognizing that market gap and then going out and trying to build markets. I think millennials, many of us in this room, all generations, but millennials are uniquely positioned to go out and shape markets. Some people call it disruption. I like to call it innovation, because we don't need to disrupt anything. We need to innovate. We don't need to pull the rug out from under people. We need to actually figure out how to all stand on that rug together or get rid of it together. But the story I'm trying to tell is about what community looks like and how in taking leaps to build new things, we need support. We need each other. I could not have started a company without the community that I had around me, without my family. I mean, as in the path that we have in life, you have options, right? I had a very, very cushy job that I was looking at a very fast-growing tech company. And sometimes I lay awake at night wondering why I didn't take those stock options. But the fact of the matter is, I knew that I was on a path to do something, and if it wasn't for my community, particularly my mother, telling me that it was okay to take that leap and that they would support me no matter what happened, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I'm really glad I did. Especially because the same year that I launched my firm, my mom, who unfortunately passed away, she had cancer and it spread into her brain. So all of a sudden I'm this CEO and now I'm a caretaker, which is incumbent upon a lot of people my age, unfortunately. I know more people my age that have lost family members than I know people 20 years older than me that still have their family members that are alive. There's something going on there, and it's very deep. And it's a powerful thing to take care of someone's life when you're also trying to be in your 20s and live and experience. But I really learned in that moment, especially taking care of my mom and working on this issue through our company, that I had community. My business partner, ResCo, who's unfortunately not here, she actually moved her life to work with me. She moved into our house to help me take care of my mom so that we could tag team and come to events like this. I mean, my second AREDAY, I spent the night before with my mom in the hospital and then flew out in the morning. And that's the thing, is if it wasn't for Corey and our community, Bobby, Hawk, some of the folks here, Abby, we wouldn't have been able to continue pushing on. And I think that that's what it means to make a new market. It's what it means to show up for each other when things are tough and actually continue to build. And it really helped me understand what it all means, what this life is really all about, and what the work is really about. So the point there is that community takes sacrifice, and it takes being uncomfortable sometimes. And it often means putting your own needs aside to serve something bigger. And I think last night we really got a sense of what we need to do in this room to support the lives of Black people, of women, of communities that have been disproportionately impacted by this crisis, and what it means to listen, to suit up and show up, even if it's not in your own best interest, and to stand shoulder to shoulder with folks that really need us to show up. And it's not comfortable. I know we've all been through it, and I think we're at a tipping point where we really need to reevaluate how we take away some of the barriers right now, the millennial barriers, people of color, all of the barriers, and figure out how we can create a more robust, diverse community. So I'll leave you with this, because if anybody wants to talk to me about nerdy things related to finance or technology on the blockchain, I will be around all day. I also sit on the board of AREI, and Hanya and I have been cooking up ideas with John R. Seidel about how we can create a more intergenerational AREDAY. And I want to thank Chip and Sally and everyone here. This is actually the first AREDAY I have been at where we have so many young people, and there is diversity, and it's emblematic of what the community is that we're trying to build, and we have to stretch this community outside of the mountain. So I'll leave you with this, because I don't have much more to say, and I can open it up to questions if people want to have a conversation. We're in a historic time. So our actions or inactions will determine the fate of our species. I think we all know that. And it's our communities that help reflect on us what's really going on, and we have to listen. So our work now is to find the strength to build community where it does not already exist, which I mentioned. And I think Hawk and some other folks here, have conversations and ask how you can show up. I think that is critical. How you can invest your resources, your time. Because ultimately it's our job to plant the seeds. And even though we may not see the tree or get to sit in its shade, it's the most important thing we'll ever do. So that's it. Does anybody? Question?
You're taking questions, right?
Sure, yeah, we've got 2 minutes. Barclay will not be happy if we go over that. Love you, Barclay.
Hi, good morning. My name is Monica Medina, and I'm a blogger now. I used to be a government public servant, recovering lawyer. My blog is called Our Daily Planet. My partner is a millennial, and we try to do exactly what you're talking about, tell these stories so that we can span the generations. We tell a lot of environmental justice stories. We try to shine a light on people who are doing great work. So hopefully you guys will check us out. The question is, and we've done some polling on this, there's a real synergy between people in my generation and your generation, and the one in between doesn't really get it. They're just not paying attention to environmental issues, or they're too busy, or whatever. It just doesn't hit them the same way. Have you experienced that too? And how do we get those people in this conversation? And the second question is about markets versus government, because I come from government, and your generation really believes in markets. Is that something that we can span as well? Because I kind of see that we need both. Maybe you do too. I don't know,
absolutely.
Maybe that's an incorrect assumption.
Well, I will say, and I want to flag it just because I'm up here. Actually, an AREDAY alumni, Chloe Maxman, just won her congressional seat. She's 25 years old in Maine. She, after graduating from Harvard, which many of us who have gone to top universities, we stay in those environments in Boston, New York, California, and she went home and said, I'm going to roll up my sleeves, I'm going to run. And there are a ton of young people out there trying to do that. I do think that there is disenchantment with our current government structure. I think that in the age of information, where we don't actually know what type of information to trust, even institutional information, which is a sad thing, there's a lot more speculation on whether or not politicians are accountable, and that's why back to community. We need young people, all of us need to go to our communities, and if we're talking about policy, we need to run in our congressional districts, or we need to work with the people that are running and hold them accountable. It's the only way to create real democracy. So I wish I could answer your other question, but let's talk later, because I see you. Okay.